says 12 days, we have a problem. I don't know what it says.
Call the meeting to order, please. Can I have a motion on the approval of the minutes of the June 26th, 2018 meeting?
Move to accept. Second.
Okay, any comments or corrections on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. All right, so before I turn this over to the superintendent, so where we're sitting at is, at the last meeting, we voted to move all the children in one school of the New Braintree OCAM situation into OCAM, contingent upon the vote of the parents of those children in OCAM and New Braintree, and school choice who attend also. So the superintendent will talk about those votes, but in the interim, we've had a letter sent to us, once again, she'll go through this, but we've had a letter sent to us from the New Braintree Select Board, whom I guess during discussions a month ago, we thought were on board with this, but apparently are not. And so based on that, we called this meeting. We also received some input from our attorneys regarding following the 5-town contract. And so we figured we better call this meeting and discuss what we did the last meeting and how we would like to move forward. And that's kind of the chronology, so I will turn it over to Sheila.
So I have several pieces of information to provide to the committee tonight. I'll start with the survey results. In your packet, you have a summary of the survey results from the parents of New Braintree parents, OCAM parents, and school choice parents. At the top, you will see, again, a summary of the overall results. So in New Braintree, there were 47 surveys mailed, 27 have been received back. 19 parents were in favor of the move of all students to OCAM Center School, and 8 parents were opposed. In OCAM, the results were much more positive, with 51 parents responding positively and 2 responding negatively, and with school choice, 4 parents responded positively and 1 responded negatively. Below that, you'll see the breakdown by grade level of the positive votes and the negative votes as points of information, and then any comments that were written and attached to the survey are transcribed at the bottom of the sheet. So overall, the parents were overwhelmingly supportive of the move. I don't know if you want to discuss each of these items, each of these points of information, or want me to give the general summary?
Why not the general summary?
Why don't I go
obviously
through
the vote is positive, so that
Right.
was part of what we, the school committee, voted upon. The conditions subsequent, which were met. So I don't know if there needs to be much discussion on that.
Exactly.
So why don't you move forward from
Okay.
there?
In addition to that, as Chairman Mullanen mentioned, our attorney, I contacted our attorney, as we discussed at the last meeting, as part of one of the steps that we would take. The attorney who worked with the school district on rewriting the regional agreement was Attorney Lennox. He is no longer practicing, and however, an attorney who works in the same law firm who did assist with some of the work on the regional agreement was available, and I spoke with him at length about the current situation. And sent him a copy of the regional agreement. He has reviewed it, and he is concerned about the language relative to in section 9. So you all have a copy of the regional agreement in your packet. On page 9, I believe, section 9. is where the provisions for allowing students in the district to attend our schools, and where it describes the intent to have elementary students attend schools in their own town. Below that are 5 exceptions to that provision. We've been discussing exception number 4 in paragraph 4, which talks about reassigning 1 or more grade levels of students, but not all grade levels of students, due to certain conditions, declining enrollment, fiscal conditions, or educational purposes. And we've been discussing doing that primarily for educational purposes, as well as, actually for all 3 reasons. The language that is concerning is the language in line 3 that specifically states reassignment of 1 or more grade levels, but not all grade levels. With the vote that was taken, we would essentially be moving all grade levels out of New Braintree Grade School and into Oakham Center School. We were discussing having district students, high school students from our transition program, attend school in the New Braintree Grade School while we continue to work with the Center for Hope in trying to come to some agreement of perhaps leasing some space in the New Braintree Grade School. However, in the opinion of our attorney, that is not in alignment with the language that's in this agreement around grade levels of students. His interpretation is that this language refers to elementary grade level students. And therefore, all of the exceptions below this language are referencing grade level students. So he believes that if we were to move all of the grade levels of students out of New Braintree Grade School, that we would need to follow the procedures outlined in paragraph 5 of this section, which describes the procedures for closing an elementary school in our district. In addition to that, we have received a letter from the attorney that represents the town council for New Braintree, and essentially stating that her opinion on the actions that we've proposed, as well as the interpretation of the regional agreement, is congruent with the opinion that our attorney has. In that letter, she stated that there was an intent on the part of the New Braintree selectmen to take legal action if, in fact, we were to decide to move all of the students in New Braintree to Oakham. So I can provide further clarification on any of that if there are questions.
Questions? Comments?
Yeah, I have some questions. Thank you for the clarity of that with the perspective of the language in question. The discussion that this all about was dealing about what was the best way we could work with the district as well as the assignment of grades in the most effective educational manner, correct?
Absolutely.
So last fall, we had the safety issue in Oakham, which then we moved the students to New Braintree. While we did that during November through June, October through June?
Yes.
Okay. So then in June, we talked about what we could do, maybe with not only with New Braintree, the K1 model back to what we've been doing for the past, 8 or 9 years? K1 with Oakham and New Braintree. How many students do we have right now listed for K-1
I believe it's
between the two?
63 students, 63 total students would be enrolled in grades K and 1 based on our current enrollment
Of the joint K-1?
of both Oakham and New Braintree.
Even though I know we had a long discussion last in June, thank you for the survey. The survey is very overwhelmingly supportive, we know that. That helps us in our deliberations, as we said when we bring that in. But the language in our agreement, I think we have a problem with our potential vote that we did in June. We also thought it was a safety perspective. The number that I thought was used around was 35 or 40 students was the number, the preliminary number for K-1, but it's a 63 if we open up August 30th or first week in September.
I believe so. Tricia can probably confirm that. That's based on our student enrollment that we have in our student information system.
43 students from Oakham and 15 students from New Braintree. There are some school choice coming in, but I did count them as far as residents.
It's 58, so there must be either 5 school choice.
What is the number for school choice there, Trish?
Off the top of my head, I think there's 2, Jess, maybe?
I think there were 2.
One for sure, and one
Her
for
numbers
grade.
are off.
But I did speak with Mary today, and we went over all the numbers. I think there's a couple that might be moving out that are still in our rolls because we don't know that for sure.
Okay, so your numbers are slightly lower than ours, but that's because of students who are unenrolling? Okay.
But we don't have the paperwork for that yet.
And none of the transition program students are elementary students?
No.
And they're not New Braintree? They don't reside in New Braintree?
That I don't know. One resides in New
One
Braintree.
resides in New
Okay.
Braintree. But it's not a grade.
Well, they're not elementary level students, so again, the legal opinion is that this language specifically speaks to elementary level students. If you look at that opening paragraph under section 9, the second sentence, it references all pupils will receive their elementary school education in facilities that are located in the member towns, except for the following. So
Right.
all of those statements that follow are exceptions to elementary level students.
And on number 4, thank you, Lee. When we looked at number 4, and we thought maybe potentially on the safety piece, and we ended up coming with this perspective with the survey, we didn't follow the other piece of number 4
Exactly.
of all grades. However, no grade level or grade levels of students residing in a member town shall be required to attend a school except by attend a school or schools in another member town or towns, except by a 2/3 vote of all members of the school committee, no problem with that, which will occur only after at least one joint public meeting of all boards of selectmen of the member towns along with representative of the district, as well as at least one joint public hearing to be held by the committee on the issue of the proposed grade level reassignment. Did we do that?
No, we did not take those steps, so that's another concern. Again, noted both in the letter from the Town Council of New Braintree as well as by our attorney. There are 3 specific steps. The 2/3 vote of the committee would have to occur after those joint meetings, which we have not yet held.
But the question is, at least according to what the attorney has told Sheila, is even if we did that, there's a question as to, well, maybe it's an ambiguity. Even if we did that, there's a question of, could we have the situation with no elementary students in New Braintree? I mean, I'm, in reading this, and I've reread it 20 times today, in rereading it, the clarity is not as good as it should be, maybe. That's what we're looking at. I think that, I'm not sure why that paragraph would be there about the 2/3, et cetera, et cetera. I can understand it would be there when we did this whole thing 7 or 8 years ago to get some OCAM students and New Braintree students in one school and the other. So that makes sense for that. But this was not, to me, I guess, based on what the attorneys are saying, is this does not make sense if we're trying to move all the elementary students from New Braintree to OCAM for the year and then bring in the 3 or 4, I guess, I don't know how many there are, of the students that would reside there as proposed by Superintendent Marshall. So I guess to follow on maybe what Mark's saying, then Cheryl, so now from the money part, if we're looking at keeping kindergarten and first grade in New Braintree, I know there was discussion of some cafeteria issues, movement of the specials, teachers coming in there, issues, et cetera. So how does that impact us? I mean, we don't want specific.
We haven't gone through that exercise, so I can't say how much it would be affect, but we would have issues with cafeteria, we would have issues with custodial, we need to add custodial time back, we'd have added expenses of specialist teachers driving between buildings,
Okay.
And secretarial
and
staff.
secretarial staff as well,
Okay.
And administrative supervision.
and school
And
nurse.
And school, and additional equipment for providing a STEM equipment for our new STEM program. We did not purchase that equipment for 5 elementary schools this year because we're only operating 4 elementary schools, so there's some equipment for our STEM program that would need to be purchased for New Braintree grade school as well.
Why would you not have purchased it for K-1, even if they were in Oakland?
We equipped one room in each
Oh, I see.
school
Okay.
that was housing, so it's like an art room in a sense. And so, because we weren't using, we equipped New Braintree, but now we will have to, we'll have to add
That's not geared
STEM.
per grade, I'm just asking as far as the STEM.
The kindergarten and grade 1 students will have STEM this year because we were able to add an additional STEM teacher. So there will be some equipment that will be necessary.
Okay.
So, okay, Debbie.
Is there any more discussion with the Center of Hope?
We have not had further discussion with the Center of Hope because we really wanted to, for us to continue to have discussions with the Center of Hope, we have to have some reasonable assurance that we actually are going to have some space for them to lease and to be interested. And they, from, the last discussions that we've had, and I know Tricia has had some further discussions since Dr. Marshall and I met with them, they're still very interested in continuing to work with the district to pursue opportunities for leasing space. But we have not had any official conversations with them. And I think we'll have to consider if we're not assured that there will be space available in New Braintree Grade School, that's the school that they expressed interest in. We will have to see whether they are in fact still interested in pursuing an opportunity.
How about the preschool program that used to be in the Braintree?
Why can't we move that there as opposed to Hardwick? I know you've contacted parents.
Well, we haven't made any decision about moving a preschool program at all. We've considered, as we discussed at the special education subcommittee meeting, we've considered moving one preschool to Hardwick because we have a needy population in Hardwick, and we think that there may be some opportunities to provide more support to students from the Hardwick community by having a preschool in Hardwick, but we haven't made any decisions about that. We have surveyed the parents of current preschool students, but beyond that, we haven't even analyzed the data yet. So, and that, I'm not sure that would do anything to solve this problem. I mean, it would put more students in New Braintree Grade School, but it's still, the the main thing that I think, the educators that I've communicated with, and I feel, and I know Dr. Marshall expressed this on many occasions, is having a K-6 school allows many more educational opportunities for our learners. They have the same types of experiences as all of the other elementary school students are in other district schools that are not possible when one population is separated from the other. We certainly, will provide an outstanding education to our K-1 students and our 2 to 6 students, as we always do, no matter what the configuration is. However, it's simply not possible for kindergarten students to interact with the older students in mentoring roles, in modeling roles, if they're not physically located in the same building. And it also limits our ability to house some district substantially separate special education programs in either New Braintree or Oakham Center School, if we have those populations split. So having those populations together not only saves us money financially, but allows increased educational opportunities for those students that we just simply can't provide when they're separate.
So just a second. All right, so the recollection from the last meeting was, and when Superintendent Marshall brought this forward, she explained that we all understood this. We were pushing the envelope on this vote. Okay, looking at the language, etc., she thought, maybe this could fit in, especially if everybody was on agreement to say, educationally it's sound, let's move the kids to OCAM, and let's take this 1 year to try and really push and get something in New Braintree. So we are at the point now of, if everybody's on board and you push the envelope to say, okay, we think we can cover this, that's one thing. If everybody's not on board, which the New Braintree selectmen apparently are not, from my point of view, I'd prefer, even though I think there's enough to play in the language to at least make a defense of what we are going to do, or what we voted to do, I certainly don't prefer to spend our money in a court battle, from a school district point of view. So having said that, and having said that, once again, we're pushing the edge of the envelope, here's my proposal. So I will entertain a motion and a second to withdraw the motion we made to move everybody to OCAM at the last school committee meeting. And of course, you can vote either way. I'm not proposing everybody vote one way or the other, but I think that needs to be addressed. And so if there's a majority here that says, what, we think because it's educationally sound, we're willing to take that risk, that's fine. If everybody's saying, no, let's go back, let's refigure this because of possible legal action, that's fine too. That's up to the committee to do. After that vote, if in fact we withdraw that motion, or language that essentially says that we withdraw that motion, then I suggest we revisit what I call the Dick Allen motion that he made, which is under 5 unfinished business of the minutes at the bottom. It essentially is a motion made by him and seconded by Deb to keep K through 1 at New Braintree School. And so that would be a second vote, if in fact that is the case, okay?
Yep.
Once that vote's taken, once again, depending on what happens, then I've had discussions with people, and I will entertain a vote or a motion that the superintendent be directed to speak with our attorneys so that we don't fall into this issue, and to outline what the steps would be to close the school, an elementary school, and that would be discussed at the September school committee meeting. Okay, so based on what I said, discussion.
Move to withdraw the first motion.
Second it. Since it's my original.
Okay, discussion.
No, I just want to say thank you for everybody at this table here. We've had discussions on this. We've been speaking and talking about the declining enrollment, the lack of unoccupied space for this sound educational practice of 5 years. We have done a great job working with the Collins Center, We have Quint, we've worked with other, we've worked with towns, we've worked with boards. We've worked to the reality, and we have a regional agreement that has mechanisms in place that will allow us to make a recommendation and let it play out how it plays out. And at the same time, it does not tie our hands, that we can still investigate, research, and continue other avenues to do that. But the reality is, the footprint that we have in the educational landscape, as with our buildings, and the utilization of it, and the finances of it, and the monies that it costs to run the schools, and to, even if we, which I'll support, absolutely. I would support the 43 to 15, the K-1 model. 8 years ago, New Braintree came to us as well because we had 70 kids in that building with K through 6 with class sizes of 6, 7 kids. And people saying that was educationally sound. And then under the old agreement, we were able to do we had to do the vote with Ocam and New Braintree only. The committee didn't have a full say. And then that said that we should try that. We have a model that works. We have models that work. So I just want to say that we have researched, and although we did skirt the issue a little bit, no matter how we feel about the vote, I think that it is in the best interest to withdraw it, do the K-1 perspective, and then move forward on the next steps appropriately.
So we've talked about educational purposes.
Please, you're not recognized, please. We all understand the educational aspect. That's, I mean, we're all there on that.
I'm not bringing up the educational aspect, I'm bringing about the emotional aspect for the kids from grades 2 to 6 that visit my classroom on a daily basis. Because
Ma'am,
for whatever reason.
believe me, we last meeting, we discussed a lot of this. I mean, we appreciate that whole, we're here kind of more looking at the legal aspect right now. That's what we need to address
Right, but you
as a
have
school
to
committee.
understand our side of this as well. You have to listen to us and our explanation.
Believe me, we understand your side.
You're not listening though. Are you?
We have,
are you understanding our side? What is our side?
we discussed this, a month ago, or
Yes.
a little more than a month ago.
Yes.
We have the results of how the parents voted, both from Ocam and New Braintree.
And what was that result? Promising?
Most were in favor of coming over.
Okay.
Yes.
We just went,
All right, yeah,
so we appreciate the position that the vast majority of parents have.
yes.
So,
It's not legal. It's
We're
not
only
legal.
concerned about the legal aspect.
Yeah,
That's
that's a-
right now, we are concerned about the legal aspect.
Of course, I
Okay,
understand.
so we need to,
And that's what you're discussing.
right, that's what we're
right now?
discussing right now.
Okay.
That's what we're voting
And are
on.
we gonna get an opportunity to, before you vote?
Not on this right now.
Hear our side of what we need?
Not on this vote right now.
No,
No, Dave.
no. So you,
Maybe I can help out. I do not want to vote for this, but part of our duties as school committee members, our fiduciary duty, is to, basic stuff is to make sure financially and legally
understood.
we're not in any jeopardy. So the first thing we have to do, reluctantly maybe, I don't know how anybody else here is going to vote, but I'm going to vote to rescind it because we've been advised by our lawyer that this is it's not appropriate for us to do. So we need to start there. And believe me, we need to chop this up a little bit. And Lee Mark outlined it, Lee outlined it. I think if you let us go through the process here a little bit, you may not be happy with the outcome, but you'll at least see how it has to play out.
Thank you. Any other
I agree. I think it's regretful that we probably have to undo what we did, because what we did was in the best interest of the children. But we have a legal responsibility to protect our district and the board, and so.
And I think that, to follow on what you all are saying, I think that if we do this, and I think that, unfortunately, and I agree, I don't want to vote for this. It's a foregone conclusion. I think we are stuck with having 50 or 60 kids in New Braintree for years down the road, because we've been churning this and churning this and churning this, and we're getting nowhere. And I don't see the town of New Braintree doing anything to try and help us alleviate this either. And they're the ones who are making the the legal rattling of the cages.
Do we know if the selectmen of New Braintree can bring legal action against the board without consent from the town? Like, they have constituents they need to answer to.
I-
If a bunch of them are here saying,
Once again, that, you know, that's their issue. You know, we don't want to get to a place where we're going to have to go to court to even discuss that part of the issue. Okay? Roll call vote? Okay.
Double
What's
check
the, what's the motion?
to withdraw.
We're withdrawing the vote of the last meeting that would put all the children in Ocam Center School, despite the fact that the parents overwhelmingly voted to do that.
What was the point of the survey then?
No.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes, just to rescind, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Brophy?
Yes.
Mr. Deschamps?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Correa?
yes.
Mr. Wiggler?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Jean-Francois?
Yes.
And Chairman Wolanin?
Regrettably, yes. I will entertain a motion on essentially the Dick Allen motion, I guess I called it.
So moved.
So that motion is that keep grades kindergarten through 1 at New Braintree and grades 2 through 6 at Ocam Center School for the 2018-2019 school year.
Second.
And of course, with the extra will, with the district vigorously and assiduously looking for other educational programs that could be placed into the New Braintree School. Discussion.
Yeah, I have a question. We've kind of opened a can of worms with this whole thing. And now, could New Braintree come back and say, do you want all grades? Or do you think they'll be satisfied if we go with?
Well, with what we've done, this is we're going back to essentially a status quo to a degree, which had been vetted years and years ago.
Yeah.
No school committee members?
Although in previous
Anybody out there
years-
wishes to make a comment now, please, yes.
Twofold. One, could you explain the legal implications, maybe too late now, but I'd like to know what the worry was as far as reverting your decision, I guess, right? And two, can we amend that school agreement or the school agreement so that education is put first, rather than keeping the school open to 40 children and the remaining of the children suffering because the teachers have to travel back and forth, or, you know, that STEM class without being able to be funded because now we've got 2 classrooms that need to be funded, not one.
Right, so to the first question, I guess if our attorneys had come out and say, boy, you know, it's not really a good defensive position, but we think we can carry it, that would be one thing. With our attorneys coming out and saying, you know, we really don't think that it's a position we can defend, putting all the children in Ocam Center School, that puts us in a problematic situation from the legal aspect. You can look at varying approaches or varying, you know, procedural stuff, et cetera, but, you know, a lot of money gets wasted on that stuff. And from the school committee's point of view and the district's point of view, you know, we have better places to put our money. And we don't have a lot of it anyway. The second one, for the second point of view is, yes, if we, you know, we would have to go through a whole process again to get people from the 5 towns to sit, and we just rewrote the contract 5 years ago.
1985.
Okay, so 4 years ago, and that was about a year to 18-month process. So it would be a process to go through that. Could it be done? Yes. We could look into it, but it wouldn't be something that could be done overnight.
Yeah, I guess I'm just disappointed with the town of New Braintree to agree and then to come back and put us, you, in this situation to go back to the contract and find a loophole, and now our children are not put first. I guess that's my opinion.
Lee, can I make a comment?
We don't disagree with you, Peggy.
New Braintree never agreed. You know, that was said earlier. The select board never agreed. I went to them. They did not want their children to leave their town. So that was never,
We understand that, Senator.
Select board okay.
said that.
Okay, wait, please, wait. Just wait. To be recognized. Are you done, Peggy?
I am.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify.
Sure,
Can I
okay.
add to
Now, you had your hand raised? Yes.
I am a New Braintree resident, and I work at Ruggles Lane, so I've been involved here at many levels, but, I have not attended a meeting in New Braintree where closing New Braintree grade school has been publicly discussed at a town meeting. It hasn't been brought to New Braintree. So the way that I read it, I've been spending a lot of time with the regional agreement today myself, and there are a lot of provisions under bullet point 5 here that say these are the steps you take. So if you school committee feel as though that's what needs to happen, New Braintree could be for or against, but they haven't been asked. Like, none of these steps have been taken. So if you want to take the first step and make that vote, then let's do that. But let's actually put it on the table and have the discussion according to the agreement, how it's written.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes?
Yes, very good.
With the students and the parents' emotions and education in consideration. We were talking at the last meeting, before we even discussed merging the two over into OCAM, about trying to come up with some way with such a small amount of people that would be in the New Braintree grade school about putting milk in coolers and driving the milk in coolers in a staff's car to the New Braintree Elementary School to serve them their hot lunch. That right there should be a clue to you that we have 2 little people in New Braintree, 2 little kids in New Braintree. And how many teachers would be there? 3?
3 teachers.
3 teachers, 1 admin.
No nurse.
No nurse, no principal full-time, and a custodian. And a town with absolutely no police, which we discussed at some point over the year, how there is no police people at the site when we're doing drop-off, and they don't even have a secure police station there. You're gonna put our kids, K, 3 grades, less than 50 children, with 3 teachers in a school. Security reasons, you're gonna be putting milk in coolers and putting them in the back of where? Some staff member's car and driving them to our children? It's a no-brainer. That is ridiculous. There are many things that we can do for the New Braintree grade school, and I know that there needs time to understand that and to investigate it, and whether it goes through or not. This is the year that we're talking about. Let's not put our kids through that nonsense, which is gonna cost us more money than not. Let's just put them all in one place. Let's get, as best as we can, get around this for the kids. For the kids.
And that's the important thing, because nobody's thinking about the kids.
Please,
The
one
kids
person
and the teachers.
has been recognized.
And the parents and everyone. They were so happy, and I wish they could stay at New Braintree, and I wish we could have enough people in New Braintree and Ocam to have 2 separate schools, and I do feel bad for New Braintree. I've lived in New Braintree all my life. I've grown up in a small classroom. I know what it is, but as everybody knows, the numbers are declining and they're not going up. So New Braintree has what? Maybe I'm wrong. From K through 6th grade, a total of 50 plus children that go from New Braintree alone. They cannot maintain their own school right now. They just can't. Maybe, hopefully, in the future they can. We're not talking about closing a school. You guys have done everything that you have, that you can, to say that we're not closing the school. We're not putting it on the townspeople's backs. We're gonna maintain it as within our district. We're gonna have kids there, still within our district, until we figure out what we can do. In the meantime, this 1 year, hopefully it'll be longer than that, and we can figure out something, but this 1 year, rather than do these silly things and these bus routes that rush parents back and forth and rush, you know, these staggering bus routes and these principals going from one place to another, the nurses going from one place to another. It was a great idea 10 years ago. But everything's declined since then. We've gotten rid of the special education. There's not any kids. There's gonna be 63, you just said, children, possibly, in that New Braintree grade school. And there's gonna be 3 teachers. Security issues. What are those 3 teachers gonna do when they have to watch those 63 children, God forbid, in a security issue?
Can I
Thank you.
address
What
the
are they
security?
going to do?
Thank you.
It is really very important for the parents of the community. And I understand that New Braintree is New Braintree. I've lived there all my life, Peggy, and I understand. I understand we want our own school. Everybody wants their own school. I understand that. But we just do not have the amount of kids to be in that school and to be our own. So we have to. We have to combine.
Thank you. Thank you. Mark?
You know, I think, you know, what you've said echoed a lot of the sentiment.
I'm sorry?
What you've said basically echoed a lot of the sentiment that the school committee actually has. We discussed this really at length. The fact is, you know, New Braintree represents like, 6% of the total population of our district.
I know.
And basically, we're now in this situation. If you folks want to remedy the situation, I would suggest that the parents of New Braintree address this with the selectmen in your town.
Yes.
Because as you see, it's solely the selectmen, quite honestly, that are concerned about this. Perhaps some other folks in town, but I hear from the parents, and it looks like the numbers from the parents, 20 parents didn't even return the survey, so I don't know what their concern is. But the bottom line is, that's what I would address. That's how I would address it. I'd bring in, have a discussion with my selectmen, and hopefully they would understand where we're coming from. Because, it impacts all the other towns, from a tax standpoint. I mean, we're not using resources effectively in our education process.
William Beck?
So for this current year, coming year, you need selectmen's permission to move these kids over, not the parents and the school committee, because you guys
We don't-
voted 8-3 last
We,
time.
no, we don't need their
So
permission.
why is he saying that we are depending on school committee, go to the selectmen
Selectmen
in
have to place the
Braintree
warrant
to
article.
get them to buy into it?
Selectmen have to call the town meeting.
But why is this legal thing suddenly coming up? This school committee, why were you looking at this earlier instead of wasting money, color printing surveys to send to parents, getting all of us to take our time to come up here? That should have been your first step, was to go talk to legal about this instead of asking us for our
He's
opinion.
absolutely right.
So why is this legal card all of a sudden getting pulled?
Can I
I
just
do believe Maureen
address that?
at the
Please,
last
please,
meeting-
please, ma'am, please, just wait. Yes.
So, can I just respond?
You were recognized and spoke. There are other people.
There's a couple of things I would like to just respond to, the last comment that was made. One of the reasons I think that the survey was suggested to the school committee by the superintendent was because at the meeting that the superintendent and I and Mrs. Worthington attended with this, that Mrs. Thompson just referenced with the New Braintree Select Board, one of the comments that they made was that they would like to know how parents felt
I think we
about
wanted to know
this
how
issue.
the whole town felt.
Oh.
No, we wanted, the selectmen have
I
always
believe
said
it
that it's
was-
a town decision.
Right, but
That it's not just for parents, because it affects their whole town.
How?
They're voters, they're taxpayers, they have grandchildren, they have kids.
Can I just ask?
Okay, wait, whoa.
Can I just ask?
Stop,
how our taxes are
stop,
gonna be affected
stop,
if it's
stop.
into the district?
Stop.
That's my
Superintendent, are you still?
So that is one of the reasons that we gathered information from the parents. My impression of that meeting was a little bit different than Mrs. Thompson's in that I felt as though the selectmen were open to, and I think Dr. Marshall, were she here, would agree, that we felt the selectmen were open to further discussion. They encouraged us to continue to talk with the Center for Hope around possibilities. This letter that our attorney has received from their legal counsel certainly contradicts my impression of that meeting. That was several weeks ago, but they have specifically stated in here that they intend to take legal action against the district if we move forward with this decision. So even though, and I'm going to speak, in my professional capacity here, I'm very disappointed that I have to make this recommendation to this committee because I don't believe that this is the right thing for us to do for our students. And I think there are many people around this table who would agree with all of the comments that parents are making here. But we have a professional responsibility to, think about the legal, protecting the district legally, and that's why
So
we're.
has there been any conversation with legal about if something happens to one of these 63 kids or the situation there?
So let me speak to that a little bit. I do think that it's important for everyone in this room to know that we believe the students in New Braintree Grade School are safe. We would never put students in an unsafe situation. Our teachers are trained. Our teachers are professionals. They have the same training in all of our elementary schools, and we would never put students in an unsafe situation. So we believe our students are safe in that school.
I'll take one more. Yes, ma'am.
My question is kind of off Jamie's. If you guys, this is what since 2014, this agreement, this legal regional school district agreement, it's like we've been in limbo for a year wondering what school our kids are going to. Why haven't you taken these steps in step 5? Why didn't you have a public meeting with New Braintree if you knew you were going to be making these recommendations? I've been wondering where my daughter and son have been going to school for a year. And if I've been wondering that, it's kind of your job to wonder that. So why aren't you following these steps? And we wouldn't be in this, it's not like, ooh, look at this legal agreement. It's like, this has been here, and why are you now finding out about it?
We aren't now finding out about it. As I said, when we discussed it last month, we were pushing the edge of the envelope. That was.
Why did you just discuss it last month? We've been wondering this since OCAM closed last year to repair it. And then it's like, oh, they're moving back in January. Are they moving back? We don't know if they're moving back. They're staying the school year. Then the school year ends. We still have no idea. We see a picture online about there's janitor moving furniture around, what school are they going to? I mean, everyone in this room has that same opinion.
This hasn't been discussed.
Thank you.
Can I answer that?
Go ahead.
There is a clause in the agreement about a safety perspective. What happened last fall was the safety perspective with the asbestos in OCAM, which then involved the selectmen, the finance committees, and everything going forward on that. And then that's why the move occurred. That was not to move or close a school. That was a temporary situation. Matter of fact, that situation was alleviated by March or April, where we could have brought the students back in April. But we didn't because we knew the end of the year was coming and it wasn't in the best interest of kids to move kids in the middle of the year. So the answer is, it was a safety issue from the asbestos and the building on that perspective. Now, going what we did in June, looking at all grades and what we were doing and reconfiguring the Braintree, we were, as ourselves, and if you were here, we were debating it because we knew we didn't have solid ground, but we were willing to go a little bit out there on this. We know what is best for kids with your help and direction. We will and need to vote and move the process to close an elementary school. I wanted, and there's others here, I wanted to do this 3 years ago.
But there was a
But
comment
we,
made in
but,
this
but we
session.
decided,
Oh, we stuck for 2 years
no,
now.
it's not stuck. It is, we are using informed information. We have the Collins Center, we have our data, we have the QUIP. We've made sure we involved people in this process. Closing a school is extremely emotional for any community, and you can see what's happening in Western Massachusetts and other communities. I worked in Worcester for 33 years, and we closed 12 schools over the years. Those are very, very hard decisions, even with 26,000 kids. But they're neighborhood schools. We had 60 elementary schools back in the 60s. So you see how important and valued schools are in the community. But the reality is, we can reconfigure this district and maybe even have 2 elementary schools with this. But to do it, we have to do a process. But I wanted to address that we were not doing it willy-nilly. We did this from the safety perspective, from the OCAM perspective, which we had to do. And then the best way was the New Braintree at the time. Now, we go back to the K-1 for 1 year, and we don't have the ability to, we could undo what we did just now, recently, and take a legal battle. But that's not our perspective. We will keep the kids in the forefront. That's our job. But we have a fiduciary responsibility. I have a new superintendent, started July 1st, and we're here on this huge issue. And if I have a superintendent, with all due respect, who is saying we're not on solid ground, we need to, my recommendation is, I'm not happy about it, I'm going to support that perspective. And the eloquency of the parent about potentially of what is in the best interest of New Braintree, that's got to go to the town. It's got to be spoken and clarified with 4 other towns as well. Because we're all in the boat together as a Quabbin Regional School District. It is not New Braintree versus Ocam versus Barry versus Athol student or anything like that. They're Quabbin students.
I agree with you, I'm just saying, why haven't you started already?
Because we in essence allowed the process further to go on. And I accept your criticism, I appreciate it. No, I appreciate it. Because in a way, we could have done this 3 years ago, we could have done these votes. And we haven't because we took the longer road. And now here we are, and now it's time to even go further on maybe starting the process to close an elementary school. Didn't say which one, but maybe to start closing elementary school.
All right, let's vote on the
Thank you.
Dick Allen motion.
Mr. Marsh? Whoops, hang on one second. Mr. Brophy?
Yes.
Mr. Deschamps?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Correa?
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Jean-Francois?
Yes.
And Chairman Wallinen?
Yes. I'll entertain another motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we direct the superintendent for our September meeting to consult with our attorney to help us in the steps to go forward for closing an elementary school for the following year, to start the process. We can always change the process as we go
Okay,
through it.
just your motion first.
Okay, motion for, talk afterwards. To direct the superintendent to work with our attorney, to consult with our attorney, outlining the steps necessary in a sequential process, procedural steps for closing an elementary school for September 2019.
Do I have a second?
2020.
Thank you. Okay, do you wish to discuss that more now? Mark?
No, I'll leave it up to us.
Comments? Discussion? Peggy?
I mean, if we're gonna look at that, because we've been on the task force for also 5 years, and they felt that no one wanted to close a school. So if we're gonna look at closing one, we look at closing more than one. I think that's the avenue we go. We've talked about, and Maureen had brought it up in the past, that we could close 3 and put all the kids in 2. So, I mean, I think rather than fingering out one school, we look at the whole picture.
Well, the motion is to ask our attorneys to lay out the steps.
Yeah, he said
so
for
that
school though.
For an elementary school.
And
Closing
And
elementary school.
elementary, okay. So, I mean, when we discuss this in September, we can,
Okay.
we can amend that. But what we're looking at right now is so that we have the attorney's input in front, so that if we do something, we don't get something later saying, oh gee, you should have done it this way. I think that's what we're
Put the
looking at.
steps on the timelines.
Right. Anybody else?
Mr. Marsh? Mr. Brophy?
Yes.
Mr. Deschamps?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Correa?
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
No.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Jean-Francois?
Yes.
And Chairman Wallinen?
Yes. You had a request for executive session?
I had a request for executive session for a potential discussion for cafeteria. We have no need for it to go into executive session. I can bring the information in September. In our packet, we have a
No,
draft.
no, you can't bring it in September. We
Okay.
want the position August 27th.
Okay. I
No, we want
apologize.
the vote now.
Can I do it
In
publicly?
public section, sure.
Okay, you do a public session? Okay. So no, we don't need to go into further into executive session. We can do it publicly in our packet. I can ask Cheryl to quickly outline, if you like, why we are proposing a position in the cafeteria position for a team leader at one of our buildings in the high school.
We have an opportunity because there is an opening at the high school to reevaluate the staffing pattern that we have there. Earlier in the year, we had a cook supervisor at Ruggles Lane that left the district, and we have appointed a worker from the middle high school to be that cook supervisor at Ruggles Lane. So we took a look at what we have, and our high school is the only school's staffing pattern that is too small for the number of meals they serve. And so the director and I, I'm sorry, she couldn't be here tonight. She had a death in her family. She's on her way to New Hampshire as we speak. We looked at the position, and rather than add or fill the open position as a general worker, we'd like to institute a nutrition team leader. This person would assist the cook supervisor at that location in assisting and supervising the workers that are on the line. We came up with a salary, and that's what we had to negotiate with the food service workers. We came up with a salary that is slightly higher than the top step of the general workers that work at the location, but less than a supervisor who works at our cook supervisor that works at the elementary schools. So we came up with a salary of $18,500.
So,
There was a difference between, Cheryl outlined, there was a difference between the cafeteria worker and a supervisor. In between that, the person is more of a team leader, non-supervisory responsibilities. And it's a pilot only for 1 year to evaluate it, because we'll be going into negotiations with the cafeteria for monies in the end of this year. So it made sense. We met with instead of putting an executive session, we met with cafeteria leadership yesterday, and they had no problem with it. They supported the job description and the salary, and wanted the same perspective to look at it in a year, make the adjustments, and go forward on that.
okay, so,
Administration's recommendation to hire this person.
Post. We need to position.
Post it.
to post the position.
Second.
Correct, okay. So, this can be a roll call vote, or, I mean,
I think it can be a majority, we'll double check.
just a majority vote?
Yes, who seconded the
I
motion?
did.
Dave?
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this? Okay, all in favor to move forward to post this position, please raise your hands. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. I'll
Thank you.
entertain another motion.
Is there any,
No,
make a motion to adjourn? Second.
thank you. We're adjourned.